I don't think we should make them wait any longer. And Tony, since you were so nice and, I don't know, I just feel like being nice right now. You want to do the introduction?
I'll do the introduction. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Glenn Jones.
Woo! Yes! Yeah. Man.
Glenn, we're so happy you're here with us to join us for All Access.
Yeah, I've been here for a while. I was back there in the cut. I'm like,
Yeah, we tried to blame it on him and his people.
Hey,
He was back there waiting.
Yeah.
So there's a one of our people who work with us named Stacy, who's supposed to make sure that we got this all covered. That we blaming it on her.
Wow.
She's a
No,
trooper.
Stacy, I'm kidding. Stacy, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
It was Tony trying to blame you. I told everybody it was definitely not you. Tony, it's good to be back here, and it's good to have you here, Glenn.
Thank you.
I couldn't wait to see you again.
Haven't seen you in quite a while. I mean, the last time was in D.C. at HUR.
Yep,
Right.
right there in Washington, D.C.
That's right.
And, we've been loving you since, you came on my radar in 1983.
Ooh.
When I first heard your music, and you've been doing your thing strong for so long. You want to just talk a little bit about just the longevity that you've had in the business? I mean, everybody can't claim that.
Well, I think that I've been blessed, and I think a lot of that came from me surrounding myself with, certain folk, certain people, and I've been singing since I was like knee-high to a duck, and I did gospel for a lot of years, and then I met Reverend James Cleveland back in the late 70s, and I recorded a gospel album. He produced it, and I did another gospel album. And then the last gospel record that I did, Norman Connors heard it, and he was getting ready to do Take It to the Limit project, and he asked me if I was interested in being on the record, and I did a song called Melancholy Fire, and that kind of opened the doors for me. I got a record deal with RCA, and the rest is history. Yeah.
We want to delve into that history, but Tony,
No, Glenn, I wanted to ask a specific question. As I look at your song list, in the 80s and the 90s, what actually is going on with R&B? What happened to R&B? Can you give us an idea of why don't we continue to hear these kind of songs?
I don't know, man. I have those discussions with my counterparts all of the time. And, then traveling and performing all over the world, it seems that people really want or they're thirsty to have that type of music, again. It was about the songs, the production and all of that. And it's just a different time that we live in now. But, I was devoted to, coming up with the best records that I could. I didn't want anybody to buy my album and they get the record home and there's one song on there or two songs. So, you dig in and you really try to give the best that you got.
Yeah. That does happen. You you get an artist, you're in love with an artist's music, and then you get the whole project home, and you're like, okay, well, there's one hit that's on there that I like. It's hard to tell. But you've got a lot of hits that everybody loves, and Tony touched on something, just talking about your whole career. What is the magic that keeps it going? You've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
What would you say is, like, say some young artist is coming up and they want to have this type of longevity? What do you tell them?
Well, first of all, I think that you have to really love what you do. And I think that you need to believe in what you do. With record labels, you'll go to them and they'll say, well, can you give me a record like such and such an artist? No, I'm going to give you a Glenn Jones record. And, if it flies, it flies. And then if not, then we go to the next thing. So I've been fortunate. I work with a lot of great people, a lot of great songwriters. Work with people like a good friend of mine that passed away a couple of years ago named Bernard Bell. He and I did I've Been Searching, and we did In You, and Regina Bell's brother. And we did some great records together. I worked with guys that produced a lot of stuff for, Freddie and, quite a lot of other artists. And like I said, it's all about solid songs, great music, great melodies, great lyrics, and I always had a problem with that because I wasn't willing to sing any kind of lyric, that's just me, you know.
So, is there anything you're working on today that we might know about?
Well, I recently did a record. I did a single with Eric Nolan. Eric is the singer with the OJ's, and we did a remake of "I Want to Be Closer" by Switch. Yeah, great record. Y'all gotta check it out.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Great record. Yeah, and we got a lot of attention from that record, but because of the business not being like it used to be, it's hard really to get the exposure on a lot of these radio stations. And it's really, really hard. So now you got to be the artist. You got to finance the record. You got to find a way to work the record, to get it exposed to the people. But I did an album before that. I did an album called Love by Design. Regina Bell and we did it together. And actually, the song was #1 on the smooth jazz vocal chart.
Congratulations.
And I did an entire album. I released half of it as an EP. Haven't released the second half yet, It's just really hard to figure out what to do with music now, as far as getting it exposed and getting it out there,
I was going to ask you that. Because, I'm in radio.
Yes.
And I love your music, you know that, for years. But I wonder, just from an artist standpoint, there's a formula, but it's hard to figure out. You put out such good music, right? We love your music, and there's so many people who love your music, and so many artists who are so good, but there are only a few that get all the airplay and that, get the attention that you deserve. How do you push through?
Well, for me, the first step is to do a great record. Okay, I don't want you to be able to say, well, the record is not up to par. So I do the best that I can do with the music. And then you'll get certain markets, maybe a B market or a C market, maybe independent radio stations that might want to give it a shot, give you some love on it. And, hopefully, it'll spread somehow, So
does that also mean gospel? I know you have a gospel background. Have you ever thought about possibly recording anything in that genre?
I produced a record on there's a group called the Canton Spirituals, and gospel group, and I produced a record on them that the record was nominated for a Grammy, and it was also it won a Stellar Award. So that was a great experience. I will always love gospel, though. That's my root. That's probably the thing that keeps me having longevity, because of my connection to that, and my connection to that power, that higher power. So, but I had intended to do an entire album. Matter of fact, I was going to record a live album in Memphis. So I'm still working on that. I'm hoping that that might come forth.
But on that topic, I know that if you're doing R&B music, the gospel people don't necessarily want to accept you over there. If you're doing, one or the other, they want you to pick a lane. So I wonder how you're able to do both with no pushback.
I don't think you should have to pick a lane. I think the whole spiritual thing is wider, it's bigger than that. This is what I do for a career. This is how I make my money. And there's so many artists, that they have that gospel background, And I remember Aretha Franklin recorded one of the greatest gospel albums ever, and I think that that's quite possible. I think that people, need to, Well, someone said to me, the church needs to grow up, because you got so many great musicians in church, and they have to make a living, and a lot of times the church ain't getting it, that envelope, ain't thick enough, and they got to live, the Bible said that a man, a laborer is worth his hire. Yeah, and that's how it should be, you devote your time to the church, and so they need to take care of you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Go ahead and preach.
And out of all the songs that you've done, is it one in particular that's close to your heart, and why?
I wrote a song, I recorded a song called Thank You for the Love back when I first got my record deal with RCA. And this was in the 80s, and this was in my transitional period. I just come from Florida. I was born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida. And I moved to New York, and I remember being in the studio just being overwhelmed because I'm sitting here and I'm watching like a whole string section and all these great musicians play my music. And around about that time, my father, he was ill. And I took that song and I dedicated it to him. That's one of the most special songs to me.
You know what? Music just really heals. Music heals people.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And the music that you put out, and share with everyone, how do you feel when people come up and they're just emotional and just really touched by something that you created like that?
I love it. It just sends me, It's like to know that you created something and it made a difference in somebody's life. For real. And the thing is that when we think of ministry, we always think about the church, But, we as musicians and singers, we have a ministry. I've had people to come up to tell me that you don't realize how much your music affected me and my husband. It kept us going. It kept us together. I even had a lady that came to me and told me a story about her son had left home, and he was gone for about 2 or 3 years. And when that song came out, he came home.
Oh, my goodness.
Baby, come home. So you never know what kind of effect you're gonna have on people.
Yeah. Those are the messages that artists need to hear.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, just to let you know that you're on the right track.
Right.
Yeah, it's a
you're
beautiful,
making a
beautiful
difference.
thing.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I asked that question is because many times when we have artists, writers, singers on the show, there's something behind these songs that have been created, whether they like the song or not. We had Cisco from Drew Hill on here, and he talked about a song he didn't like that ended up being a hit. Exactly. So, it's just interesting that there's stories behind these songs and why they're written and things of that nature. So we find it very interesting.
Well, sometimes you're not sure. It's like when I first got signed to RCA on my second project, a friend of mine named LaForest Cope, we call her Lala, and she lived around the corner from me when I lived in Queens. And I went around to see her, and she played this song. Well, first of all, she played this song called You Give Good Love. And I was on my knees begging for it. Please. She said, nah, this is for this young lady that's signed to Arista Records, And I said, okay. She said, well, don't worry about that. She said, I got another song for you. And she played a song called Show Me. And that was one of my first big records, And I wasn't sure about the song at first, but the more, it just grew on me. And then the next thing I know, it was a smash record.
Ooh, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Are there ever or other songs that maybe you passed on and another artist got it and it became a hit? It blew up and you're like, oh, man, I made the wrong decision.
Well, there was one situation where Patti LaBelle, when she did On My Own with Michael McDonald, that was my record. I was supposed to be singing on that record. Matter of fact, Burt Bacharach and Cadbury Sager called me to, come out to L.A., and I'm like, man, look, I need to pack my bags right now. I'm going. And at the time I was managed by somebody that said, well, no, hold on. We want to make sure that, the deal is set and the paperwork is right. I'm like, man, look, Burt Bacharach just called my house. You know, but that was a disappointing thing. But in doing a lot of records, because sometimes people don't realize how many projects I've done. I've got like 14 records, and a lot of times the music that's on those projects are really great, just as great as the stuff that you've had hits with. But if we don't get a chance to dig in and get to the second and the third and the fourth single, then people will never know. So I have favorite songs right now that was never released as a single, that are amazing songs. I have songs that, in other countries, Europe and South Africa and so many other places, it's like the records are brand new. I'm going to South Africa this year. I usually go every year, but I think I'm going about 3 times this year. And I have a record called Hey Bear, yeah, come on, baby. There's a song called All I Need to Know, which was recorded, after I originally recorded. Beth Miller was the first one to record it, as far as I know. Great record. And that was some years ago. And when I go over there, that's like one of their national anthems. They love it, They love that song so much, and a few other, songs that I have. So you never know, And most of the time when I go to Europe or go to UK, you want to sing the songs that were like these big hits in the States. That's not what they want to hear. They want to hear the B-side. You know what I'm saying? So it's nice to have that option, whereas you can display different songs and different music that you've recorded, that a lot of people don't know, but in those regions they know it and they love it.
No, that's kind of interesting because when we were booking acts for Soul Train years ago, my father, a lot of artists would come on, and they would want to do the B-side.
Yeah.
And he'd say, "No, we doing the A side."
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the audience wants to hear what
The
they
hits.
like,
Right.
not what you like or what you're trying to promote. So that's kind of an interesting little thing that happens between artists and audience, So I found that kind of interesting. But I wanted to go back and say, when you said you mentioned the song "Show Me," I remember being in Chicago in my car, my first car, and I'm like, show me what I got. It didn't sound like that, though. It didn't
Go ahead,
sound like
T.
that. It didn't sound like that.
Go ahead,
Okay,
T.
That was
didn't sound
brave.
like that. Okay, but it had meaning to it.
Yeah.
It had so much. Those few words
Right.
had so much meaning.
Yeah.
So.
I've seen people take some of the songs that I've recorded and flip them, and they turn them into gospel songs. There are a couple of gospel artists that have done that. And Show Me, they took I've Been Searching, and a few other things, and they just kind of flipped the lyric and turned it into something spiritual, which they probably had a good reason to do that, because some of the lyrics that I've written have kind of been like, the kind of lyric that could, could go either way. And even when I first started singing R&B, I was a songwriter, but this was a new world for me, so I wasn't really writing anything. I was sitting back, I'm like, I want to sit back and check out what they do on this side of the table. And I came to find out that there was no difference, because it was still about love, It was still about, commitment and all that kind of stuff. So that's when I felt that I was ready to start just writing some of my R&B music.
Good. That's awesome. So when you're, I guess, deciding what the next step is for you, like you've done this, you've done that. What's next for you, and how do you determine that?
Well, the biggest thing for me now at this stage in my life is, loving my family, being with my family, realizing that life is short. It don't last always. You turn your head and it's gone. So every day that's happening. So I'm trying to be more into my family, because when I was younger, I was always running around and, traveling everywhere. And, I was the baby of 9, and now it's only 3 of us left. So, you know, I got used to that baby treatment. You know, I was loving being the youngest in the family. But, you know, my priorities, you know, things have changed. And I will always do music. That's my first love. I will always do that. But in the meantime, as far as deciding what's next, I just try to keep an open mind, and I try to let God tell me what's next.
I love
You know,
that.
because we don't know, you know, and we don't always know what's best for us.
You know what?
So,
And just to piggyback a little bit off of that, with the tragedy that happened, you know, just recently with the crash, it really puts things in perspective. And as an artist, you know, you're affected
yes.
by everything that's happening, current events, all of that. And so, you know, how do you deal with it? Do you put it in your music?
Yeah, that's a good way to express a lot of things that you feel. I remember when COVID came along, you know, that was frightening. You know, I had like all of these dates. My whole year was planned out. You know, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be good this year. Go get that new car that I want, and you know all of that. And then all of a sudden, everything just fell off, and I was at home for a year and a half. But you know, the electric bill is still coming, yeah, and all that stuff keeps coming. But I was working on that last album I was telling you about, and I wrote a song called "Trust in Me" at that time, and it came out to be a beautiful song. I'm sure a lot of you haven't heard it, but it was coming straight from there because that's all I could do, you know, and that worked for me.
That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that.
You know, a lot of times we ask artists, what would they tell the next generation? I mean, even though R&B is doing what it's doing or not doing what it's doing, what would you tell a new artist that wanted to sing R&B how would you get them to navigate at this point, you know?
Well, in my opinion, R&B will never die, okay? You can say what you want, but it's the foundation. It's the foundation of all this music. And even the newer music, you know, all of the young hip-hop artists, they still got their hand in over on the R&B side. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you know, if you want that flavor, you got to do that. And I think that, you know, I think you need to try to be on the positive side, or you need to try to bless somebody with some knowledge or some encouragement. You know, they always got to be about you know shaking the booty and all that, which is cool. I like to see some booty shaking too, you know. But I mean, you know, it's got to be a message in some of this, man. It can't just always be, you know, so loose. You know, I remember them talking about when Dionne Warwick had that meeting with all of the, you know, the rappers, the hip hop guys, and you know, she was asking them, well, do you have a daughter? Do you know? And she said, well, how do you feel about, you know, the names and stuff that women are being called sometimes in this music, you know, being called, you know, out of their names. Yes. I'm gonna put it like that. And they, you know, they responded. I mean, it was like, wow, we never thought about it like that. So, I mean, you know, you can do your thing and make money, but still, you know, there needs to be respect, and there needs to be a standard to the music, you know.
I love it. We could talk to you all evening, but I know you have somewhere to be. But this is an amazing conversation, isn't it? Glenn Jones, we love you. We love your music.
Thank you.
This has been informative, and we appreciate you taking the time and making it happen, because it wasn't necessarily on the schedule to do it like this, but we are blessed to be here with you today.
Right
Thank
on.
you for making it happen.
Well, you know, I'm going to put Glenn on the spot because we always kind of put people on the spot. And because I sounded so bad during Show Me, I at least want you to follow it up with something better.
Something good.
You know what I'm saying, Glenn? I really do. I mean, I sounded terrible, you know?
He wants me to redeem him. Well, if you come to the World Stage venue tonight at 9 o'clock, I will be there
All right.
performing with Shalimar and Howard Hewitt, you know. So, But I tell you what, until that time, I'll just say, show me what I gotta do. And baby, if you love me, I'll do anything for you.
Yes,
to the
yes,
joke.
yes.
Yes.
I'm redeemed. I'm redeemed.
You are redeemed.
I got
I'm
you.
redeemed.
I got you, T. Don't worry about it. I got you.
Thank
man.
you so much. Thank you all for coming
Thank
out
you.
today. For Tony, Cornelius, and myself, and Glenn Jones, this is All
All
Access.
access.
Yeah.